We have a brain with our heart. The brain in our head is called the brain. The brain in our heart tends to be called things like intuition or mysticism or something like that. But actually, I like to call it the biocomputer, brain, and consciousness. Now, each of our biocomputers is different. Consciousness is one. So basically, we're trying to make the difference between the head and the heart, which is maybe 12 to 14 inches if you measure it down our faces and across our necks. Well, it's the longest distance in our lives. When we get into the consciousness of the heart, we realize that we are all one and that we are all creator. We are very young co-creators. We don't really know how to go on yet. But that's who we are. That's our identity. And so what is it to be all things? Well, it's to be all the good things that we've learned how to be, the mask that we wear. And we wear it very deeply. We have no idea really most of the time that it's a mask. Plus, it's all the things that we know are not right to do, which we would never do. Well, why would we never do them? Well, the culture says don't do those things. But you see, we have it in us, in the right circumstances, to do virtually anything. It's all within us. It has to be all within us if there's a unified creation. That's where the Hall of Mirrors comes in. If we are all one, then as John Lennon said, and I never get this quote right, I am he and you are he and we are all together. And so when we look in the mirror and we see something that is appalling to us, instead of contracting against it, putting up a defense against it, wincing, turning away, getting sick to our stomachs and so forth, what we need to do is look carefully at that mirror, because that mirror is showing us a part of ourselves that we don't want to see. We really don't want to see it. I mean, really don't want to see it. So it is very difficult for most good people to think, well, that too is I. But that is one of the Buddhist tenets. That's a cliche for Buddhist students, is Tattvam Asi, that too is I. And the value of realizing that is that then you can do the work that gives you. You see, you get catalyst from outside. You bring that into your heart, and then you ask yourself, okay, let me feel that righteous indignation. Let me just really amp that up and just feel how that feels. Okay, now let me find the opposite. Let me find the opposite emotion to that. And then you find a lovely, sweet, light, uplifted emotion. And you hold those two in your mind after experiencing both. And you see the balance. And you realize that all is one. We had the choice, and we chose not to express those things that we have contracted against. But the next time that you see that precisely same thing, you will see the trigger that much more quickly. And if you work with these emotions over a period of years, and instead of reacting impulsively and negatively, you thoughtfully, gently pull those into your heart and come to find them in the self and come to ask them to work for the light, then gradually you are redeeming that whole self so that you become a great-hearted person, little by little, by your own work, by your own seeking within for the truth. Nobody wants to be the murderer. Nobody wants to be the abuser or the stealer or any of those other things that one sees in one's thoughtless, careless neighbors. But we have it within us. And if we can come to find it within ourselves and to heal it within ourselves, then we become able to forgive it in ourselves and to forgive it in others. And this means that we can live a life that is not particularly reactive to the folly that goes on around us that we still consider folly. We don't choose to act out on those things. But now, you see, we're free from all of the bother and all of the time that it takes to react negatively to those other people, about whom we can do nothing. As you said, Peel Street, you can do absolutely nothing for those people. You can do nothing to change those people. You can do everything to change the way you see them. See with eyes of love. That's the best I can offer. Monica,
Okay.
you got a follow-up to that?
Ooh, no, I don't think so. I think you pretty much covered it. Okay, we have a question from our chat room, and I want to also mention that anyone that would like to call in, that phone number once again is 347-884-8770. That's 347-884-8770, and if you hit the one key on your phone, you'll join our discussion. Now, for now, we have a question from our member from the Bring Forth Forum, Publissimo. And he says, Carla, thank you so much for your wonderful service. I truly believe that forgiveness does break the wheel of karma. Forgiveness of others comes very naturally to me, and despite having been harmed and mistreated many times in my difficult life, I hold no rancor towards others in my heart. I can forgive others almost instantly once I'm centered and never harbor grudges. I feel I can see so clearly in this area, but alas, my crystal eyes fail me when the rest upon a mirror. I find it difficult, if not impossible, to forgive myself for my own transgressions. I'm not sure why it's so difficult to forgive myself when forgiveness in general comes so easily. Can you offer me any advice about this?
Okay, Pablo. I understand that feeling because I think not only I, but almost anyone who has a conscience finds the self the hardest to forgive. We know our secret thoughts. We know the things that don't come out, that don't get said. We are fully aware of every negative thought that we might have. And I have many in a day. Oh, my goodness. I am a natural critic, and I am merciless. I usually don't say a thing, but my opinions are judgmental. However, it doesn't trouble me much after decades of working on myself. I can't change my personality. I can't change what impulses are going to pass through my mind first. I am always going to forgive others, and I am always going to hold myself in judgment. It's just the way I am. Maybe it was caused in part by having perfectionistic parents whose reaction to anything I did was that I could do it better. I remember multiple times I had grades that had all A's and one B. I was very good at school. But occasionally a teacher and I would disagree on something, or a teacher would, actually I had a teacher accuse me of plagiarizing in English class in sophomore year and actually failed me on a couple of papers because she was certain that I'd copied them from someone. And she couldn't find it. Of course, I'd written them. She was absolutely convinced that I was incapable of writing at that level, and therefore she just flunked me. So, it's like, excuse me, but I'm living here. I actually do exist. But at any rate, I had this tendency ever since I was a kid to spend a lot of time in self-judgment and agonizing over whether I did the right thing and then being sure that I made the wrong decision, blah, blah, blah. And I think that the reason for that is that everybody else is editing what they have to say and making it all sound Sunday best, whereas we are unable to edit. We know exactly what we think, and it's only, the surface, the tip of the iceberg is the good stuff, and then there's all this other judgmental stuff going on. So naturally, we're going to be self-critical. It's just going to happen, and the more tender one's conscience, the rockier the road is for us because we see so many things where we could have done better. It's just going to be that way for the rest of your life. So what you need to do is hunker down with yourself and realize that the Creator offered us the opportunity to go into the valley of the shadow of death. That's what I see this earth as being. It's a shadow land. Nothing is what it seems. The world is actually atoms in space and motion, not mass. But we have to believe that we're sitting in a chair and that our hands can grasp the paper that I'm holding in my hand and that things work the way they work because of the illusion being so heavy. As Wordsworth said, we trail clouds of glory as we come into this world, and then we forget where we've been, and we're sunk into this shadowland. And there is no way to prove anything that has to do with faith at all. So we are vulnerable to the judgment of ourselves because we cannot see beyond our personality shells and those gifts of the culture and our upbringing and so forth that are so terribly imperfect and so thoughtless in terms of the consciousness that created them. The secret to coming to love the self is to apply to the self the same compassion and balm of Gilead that you apply to everyone else. That sounds so simple that it's, why should I say that? But it's the simple truth. The reason that you can forgive others is that basically they do not matter to you. You can be the great God on Olympus and forgive them and tolerate them and be good to them because, after all, it's your creation and you're God, right? That's basically the way it all works. We all have our own little monadic creation, and it feels very real to us. What we need to do is allow into that forgiveness ourselves as well, and first off, before anybody else. I think the seeker's first work is generally with himself. To begin not just to like the good part of the self, but to like the whole part of the self. To see beyond the personality shell, what Freud called the ego. Because the ego is something that, well, just figure that an incarnation in our soul stream is like a trip. And it's not like a long trip, it's like a weekend. And we pack our bags, okay, be here, this relationship, that relationship, let's see. Got to build redundancy into the system. I'm going to put a whole bunch of relationships in here in case I screw up one, then I just move on, find another. There's no end to the contracts that I've made with people by now. I'll work with all of these people if necessary, but I probably won't get halfway through the list. Okay, got the relationships, got the mom, got the dad, got the friends, got the lovers, got the mate, got the kids. Okay, now let's see. What do I want to be? Let's see. I'm going to put some gifts in there. I'm going to put some limitations in there, some challenges. And I'm going to put some traits, okay? Let's see, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that, I'll be that. Okay, and that's all. Now, your closet's still full. Everything on your nightstand is almost all there. You're just bringing enough for a weekend. So, say that you had a purpose in this incarnation. Say you wanted to balance wisdom and love. So you brought a bunch of things there that were not lovable, so that you could learn to love yourself. That sounds to me like your situation. Okay. Why did you keep putting yourself in the situation where you judged yourself? Why did you keep not liking yourself? You're trying to balance something in yourself in this boot camp that we call life. So by all means, focus on it. Work to balance it. Tell yourself every day, here I stand, all ragged and dirty, kiss me quick or I'll run like a turkey. I wrote that in my book 101 because I used to say that as a little kid, and I always loved it because we're all kids with dirt on our faces. We all need love, and we need it from ourselves more than we need it from anybody else. We need the approval of ourselves, and the only way we're going to get that approval is to forgive, 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 because we all have this incredible